Hey guys, how you doing? It's Vince. First of all, I want to thank everybody who responded about my last video, giving me ideas. I now have way too many, but I'm going to sift through what everybody gave me and come up with variations of that. There was a few that were kind of oddball one-off kind of things that I think I'll probably do first, and I'm going to do one of those right now. Colin Medicine Horse, also Old Man Funko, for his toy site, suggested about doing something other than records or CDs, and I did do one on my tour programs a while back, but I hadn't done one on a bunch of my rock and music related books, so I figured I'd go through those. I don't have a boatload, but I got some interesting ones and I figured I'd show them to you. If you can hear in the background, it's Queen 2. This is an early European version of it from, I'm thinking either late 80s, early 90s, that I got a long time ago. Alright, so let's see. I got 3 stacks here and figure which way I'm going to start. I'll start with these first. I'm going to show a bunch of biographies. First of which being this one right here. Is a Big Beat Heat. That's actually the story of Alan Freed, who, the man who actually coined the phrase rock and roll and was kind of the original DJ that started the whole process going. Interesting story, and interesting to see of all the interesting situations that he got involved in that ended him in jail and then eventually penniless. But it was an interesting story. There are some pictures in here in the middle. There he is right there, and a couple more. So there's a few pictures in here too. Let's see if there's something else in here. They're pretty much of him. There's a tour poster of one of the early shows that he used to do, the live shows he used to host. So anyway, that's that one. The other ones are a little more up to date. This one I believe I got this past Christmas, and actually finished it. I don't know why that's in here. The Joe Perry book, Rocks, Life in and Out of Aerosmith. Also an interesting read. Interesting how he portrays Steven Tyler in certain circumstances. Kind of makes me think a little differently about him. Good to actually see his story too, because he seemed like a little more of a normal, straightforward kid growing up, and being I was kind of in the same boat and in so much in the music as he was, I kind of related to that, so that was kind of cool. There's pictures on the back, and there's some pictures in here. I'll show you a few. That's his dad, I think. And there he is as a nerdy kid. And middle, got some pics in there. More in the day, and then some newer ones in the back. Here he is playing with Kiss. Oops. So this was a very enjoyable read, and I'll probably read this again down the line. I don't read the books too often. I kind of space them out, and then after a while I may come back and read it again if I kind of forget a lot of the details. Kind of want to relive it again, so to speak. Next one is the Sammy book, Red. Also very interesting book, and interesting to get to know him. He was also pretty normal, though he did get into a little more stuff I think than Joe did when he was younger. But his attitude and how well he's done financially with everything, and how still pretty down to earth he seems, is pretty cool. There's some early pictures. And then a couple from the newer section. There's some Van Halen ones and him and his wife. And let's see. Solo band, sitting in with some people. Hoochie Mama. You know. Also a very cool book. Now here's one that I think I got from the wife for my birthday last year. This is like one of the guys that's kind of one of my sort of guilty pleasure type people. This is Rick Springfield, and the reason I dig Rick is because Rick, though he got caught up in other things and that helped him with his success in the early 80s, he was always a musician first and foremost, all the way back to the 60s with his group The Zoot in Australia. And trying through the 70s and all his hardship and the few albums he did release. Very interesting story, especially during that period when he was going through all that heavy stuff and, you know, wasn't achieving a lot of that success, and what he was going through and everything that was going around with him at the time and his relationship situations and all that. It's definitely tells you everything. I mean, it's definitely from him. So there's a lot of heavy stuff in here, and he tells it all, bad and good. There's some pictures there. There's his mom, there's him in the 80s. His doggy. Yeah, this one's only got one set of pictures. Here's one of him as a kid, though. Big Meat Mayday. So once again, very, very interesting read. Another one I'll probably be coming back to. Now this one I kind of acquired by accident when we moved into this house that we are actually renting. In the garage there was some stuff left over that somebody had left there. And there was actually two books, one of which I don't have here, it's at work, because I was going to send it to somebody. This one was also with it, and it's a Jim Morrison book called Dark Star. Now, this one I never actually read. I kind of forgot. I found it and I put it up with my other ones, and I never read it. But I did flip through it a little bit, and there are some very cool pictures in here. Let me see what's his grave. So, I'm interested to read this at some point. See what exactly this is about to do with him, where it comes from and all that. So this will probably be the next read that I do once I do read something. Alright, the next one I'm going to do is actually one of my favorite books that I have here. And I got it a long time ago as a present. But is the Complete Family Rock Family Trees. Now, this was written by this guy who compiled these in the 70s and early 80s. So obviously the information in here only goes up to that point, depending on which timeline it is. Some go farther than others, but they don't go any past, I think, 82 or 83. But still, it gives you the timeline of all these different groups and who played with who and when they left, and some side notes about things to dealing with the band and discographies. And this is how they're laid out. This is all the Jefferson Airplane Starship all the way up into the 80s. And you see there's a lot of interesting notes on the side. Some of these are more like this, where it's just a really big timeline and not as much stuff on the side. But you see it breaks it down into a family tree, and then it does offshoots where somebody left and started a different group, and somebody left over here and started a different group, and then sometimes they meet up again and come back in the middle. It's a very, very interesting book if you are into that kind of thing. And me personally, I like learning the history and finding out about groups that I know and like and am aware of, and finding where certain musicians went at certain times that I may not have known about. And also love discography, so those are in here too. So I've been through this book many, many times, and I still look at it from time to time. Next one is one, I don't know where this came from, but this is actually, it's nothing special, but it's actually an original book from '69, and you can tell by the pages are all yellowed out. But basically what it is it brings up a bunch of different groups, and then it has lyrics. Oh, this has a few more Beatle pictures. It actually has lyrics to some of their songs with the pictures. There's a few more. And there's actually more than that. There's Simon and Garfunkel, and actually I have the Monkees in here, which is kind of interesting. Doors, Unknown Soldier in here. Paul Revere and the Raiders. Bobby Gentry. Ode to Billy Joe. Louisiana Man. There's a big picture of her. Hendrix. Up from the Skies, and then there's oops, I lost it. There's a couple pictures of him. And Donovan. You see how it works? And it goes through a whole bunch of different people. There's Otis Redding. And actually there's Sonny and Cher in here. And the Byrds. And so it's not much of a read, but it's cool looking at the pictures and the fact that it's that old. So I got that. Well, this one's kind of interesting. Kind of more in the lines of a discography thing, but it gives information about all the releases, including the off releases, and about each track on the album for the discography for The Who in pocket form. This goes through, lists all different songs from each album, and then a little information about each one, and even the off tracks, the ones that aren't actually on there, it talks about as well. And then see there's pictures in the middle. And goes through the whole thing, and then even does some oddball stuff at the end, concert stuff and bootleg stuff, and there's some new pictures. So this is kind of interesting. I've been through this one a few times. Next one's kind of interesting. I got from my mother, I think a year ago. It's a weird and strange perspective, but something I never really thought of before. But it actually kind of goes through a lot of different aspects to compare in a way. Beatles versus the Stones. And it's one of those, can't see it on here. There it is. It's one of those 3D kind of deals. But yeah, it's a whole bunch of different writers and stuff going through different aspects of each of the groups and comparing not so much what's better and what's worse, as much as it is, how they were similar, how they were different, things of that nature. And it goes through the whole, different aspects of each of the groups, different album comparing, like from year to year, stuff like that. There's a little timeline in there. And this is actually kind of interesting. I mean, even though some of the points aren't really valid, but it's just interesting to hear the information or see the information. Now I got a few Beatle-related books I'm going to show real quick. Hard Day's Right, which is kind of like the Who book, where it goes through their songs and explains how they came to be and who wrote what and what happened in the recording process. And this one's a little more in detail than the Who one, so it's a little more interesting read. You see it goes through all their songs. And so that one's kind of interesting too. Next one is a John Lennon book, a really big one. This one has a lot of pictures. And this goes through, kind of this history. So this one's actually better for pictures than it is for the content. But I've read it a couple times too. So this one's kind of interesting, but like I said, it's more of a picture book. Now this one is basically Beatle lyrics with pictures going with them. So obviously isn't much to read, but there's lyrics and artwork to go with the different lyrics to their tunes. And then there's some other pictures in between, drawings and what have you. That's an interesting one. That was Cry Baby Cry from the White Album. So I'll show a few more. A lot of these are kind of drawings. And that is for I'll Be On My Way. That's an interesting one. Let's give Peace a Chance. So obviously I've really gone through this one because, like I said, it doesn't really have information, it just has the lyrics in here. So obviously this has a little bit of Beatle related stuff too. Oh, here we go. Nude Popeye. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Of course it goes with the Ballad of John and Yoko. I guess Popeye is John Lennon or something, I don't know. Anyway, it's interesting. Alright, next one is Making of the Beatles Magical Mystery Tour movie, show, or whatever you call it. Has a lot of information of how the process worked and things that happened during the filming of it, and a bunch of pictures and stuff taken around the same time that the show was done. So that was kind of interesting. A little time capsule. I mean, I didn't know much about the movie anyway, so it was good to find that out. Okay, next one, a couple ones are guitar related. This is actually the last book I got. It's in a nice hardcover book case. It's Fender Custom Shop, and this has lots and lots of custom Fender guitars. Information about the guys that built them. Ones that were built for specific people and how that came about. And it goes all the way from the beginning of the process to now. And you can see, the coolest thing about this is the pictures, as far as I'm concerned. Look at that one. That's interesting. So that was real interesting to look through. I got one more guitar one that I got earlier. Now this is actually history of the American guitar. So this actually has pictures, and it actually has years on it when these guitars are made, all the way back to 1833, and then skipping through is 1894. These were all guitars built in that time period. And then it talks about different brands and different makers, how some of them evolved into different companies and things. This is 1927. And we'll skip into still 1935. So they're actually starting to get into the electric thing. And then there's 58 for you. You see they even had the Flying Bee and the Explorer back then. Those were new at that point. And it goes all the way up until the 2000s. That was kind of really interesting. Next two I'm going to show real quick from my mother. They're actually books more about the 50s. Called The Rock and Roll Generation. Kind of time capsule about how things were at that time. In the mid-50s when rock and roll was just starting. There's Elvis as a baby. And there's the surf thing with Annette and Frankie Avalon and all that. So basically, mid-50s to early 60s in the time capsule. And this one is a little quick history, rock and roll at 50. And this goes through, I think, 50 artists. Is it 50? It's a bunch of different artists in the history of rock and roll. And a whole bunch of different pictures and people that had to do with rock and roll. As I showed Dick Clark. And there's a bunch of crazy girls in the 50s. So that was kind of interesting. Next, Definitive Guy Encyclopedia Rock thing. This has some good information. As you can see, it's rock, and you see Christina Aguilera side. It is what it is. It goes from all the way from the 50s through the 90s and today. So it has a lot of newer artists, and then it has a lot of older artists, and everything in between. So interesting information. Some decent pictures. Patti Smith. So this one's pretty cool. The next one, I got two left real quick. I got this one a long time ago. The 100 Best Album Covers. Now, I remember when I was a kid getting a book called the Album Cover Album from the library, and it was the size of an album cover, and it would show all these great album covers from the 70s and early 80s. And there was a series of more than one, but I think I had the first one was the one I had. I always remember loving looking through that thing. Well, this is kind of like that, except it actually chooses what they think, who these people think were the top covers, and explains how they came to be, and information about the artists and stuff. And there's Free and there's Gamma. And so this is pretty cool. It skips all over the place with Wes Montgomery. So this is, I've read this several times myself. Now the last one's my newest book. I just won this from Vinyl Rewind Contest. American Records, the Goldmine price guide book thing. And this goes from 50 to 90. So this has no newer releases as far as what they're worth or anything. This is all original stuff. So it's kind of interesting to look through here and look for stuff that I happen to pull out, and just to see, get an idea if it's worth anything or not. Or, I mean, obviously the numbers in here are supposed to be for like mint or near mint or something. You know, depending on the album, it may not be the case. But still, just to get an idea. And then the other thing for me is, like, I love discographies. So I may look up an artist I don't know a lot about, and it'll list everything that they did, at least from that time period on. And so for that, it's very cool. Now, these books like this, I like flipping through when I'm listening to music. I'll just kind of sit and flip through it and look at different sections and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's the majority of my books. I may have a few more kicking around, but that's most of them. Hopefully you dug that and that was interesting for you. I don't know if the video's kind of up there. I usually don't like doing really long ones, but thank you for the ideas, all of you. Thank you, Colin, for this idea. Hopefully I did it right on this one. And I'll go through what I got left for ideas and get another idea. I do want to think of one thread kind of thing for me that I can do that's similar, that I can do part 1, 2, 3, 4. That's kind of a series thing. So I want to do that, and then like some of the other oddball ones I'm going to probably do in between kind of thing. And then if I do get any new stuff or contest entries and that kind of thing, I'll do those. So anyway, hope everybody's having a good day. Take care, and I will see you later.